Hello, this is Matt on the Moon Lambeau channel. You know, XRP on a fundamental level has never been in a better position than it is today. I mean, pick a metric. Pick a metric. I mean, whether you're talking about actual utility, you want to talk about the legal status of XRP, things have never looked better for XRP than they do right now. Yet even so, XRP price action is at the whim of macro factors, which don't directly have anything to do with it, or even crypto, broadly speaking. You know, and so in that sense, it's like XRP is effectively held hostage by other factors, the macro factors. But we are at this point, a true inflection point, where we're going to see what happens to XRP, because either the market's going to keep blazing to the upside, Bitcoin's going to hit a new all-time high, and XRP in that case, I think, would follow and hit a new all-time high finally. Or Bitcoin's not going to hit a new all-time high, and I'd be highly skeptical of XRP then hitting a new all-time high. And then we just have to wait, what, potentially years? So look, I'll just say, I don't want to get too far ahead or concern people. Like, to be honest with you, I'm cautiously optimistic. And so that's really what I want to focus on in this video. I'm going to share with you perspective from a number of analysts, because this is what we should be focusing on. We should be laser focused. If you care about what's going to happen to XRP, and you understand that the entire asset class moves together, and you know that XRP, it's just data, it's historical data, if you know that XRP has never hit a new all-time high without Bitcoin leading the way, you also understand that Bitcoin follows what happens in the stock market, then we need to be focusing on what's happening in the stock market. So we'll talk a little bit about what's happening in the short term regarding Bitcoin price action, which does lead the way, like it or not, and we'll talk about what's happening potentially throughout the rest of 2024. So again, cautiously optimistic, but it is possible, I admit, for everything to just be lit on fire. We have a dumpster fire here. Like that could happen. It could happen. But before going any further, I do want to be clear, I do not have a financial background of any kind. I am not offering financial advice, and you definitely should not buy or sell anything because of anything I say or write. I'm just an enthusiast who enjoys making YouTube videos about crypto-related topics, but just as a hobby and just for fun. Well, the market's basically moving sideways in recent days, you may have noticed, not recovering just yet. XRP at 51 cents, Bitcoin a hair above $40,000 at the time that I'm recording this. In case anyone's curious, it is 6:23 p.m. Central Time, Thursday, January 25th, 2024. We've got the market cap for the asset class down to 1.57 trillion, and the crypto fear and greed index, lowest I've seen it in a while, 49 out of 100. So we're not in fear territory, just kind of neutral. What can we expect in the short term? Well, the chart analyst Credible Crypto, just about an hour ago actually, was kind of asked what happens in terms of lower time frames of short-term price action for Bitcoin. What are you expecting? And Credible Crypto still does think we are going to see another move to the downside for Bitcoin, which means everything, presumably including XRP, is going to go down to at least some degree, but nothing horrific here. He wrote, ideally, one more push down to $38,500, yes. So that's what he thinks is most probable, and then Bitcoin would resume its move to the upside. He still firmly believes Bitcoin will be hitting a new all-time high this calendar year. And he acknowledges, yes, it's possible. He just doesn't think it's probable, but it's possible we could see a much deeper move to the downside before moving to the upside of maybe $34,000, but he does not think that's remotely probable. He spoke about that at length in a recent video. So I just thought I'd mention it, but he could not be more bullish at this particular point in time. And then there was this post from James Van Straten, who is the lead analyst at Crypto Slate, shared this chart and wrote the following. This is fascinating, and you always see this at times of capitulation. He wrote, long-term holders sent over $430 million worth of Bitcoin at a loss to exchanges on January 22nd, the day Bitcoin went below $39,000. More capitulation signs, getting closer. So he's making the point that as the price was cratering, that prompted people who were getting hit, they got their feels going on. They're feeling very, very anxious. They're feeling very nervous about this, very scared, very stressed. So what do? They take their Bitcoin, they send it to an exchange, and then they sell it at a loss. Tale as old as time, my friends. It is what it is. Humans gonna keep being humans. Like and this is why I say, like, part of my investment strategy, a huge part of it, it comes down to this expectation that humans are going to continue to make very poor investment decisions like this. This is it. That's exactly what I'm expecting over the long haul. And so even if in the short term they're right and say Bitcoin craters down to $30,000 and they can be like, whew, glad I got out. You know what beats that type of mentality is just holding for just ridiculously long periods of time. There's no shortage of data to show us that the people that do that when you're talking about investing in equities or in crypto, those are the people that make the money. So they can do what they're going to do. I'm counting on them doing that. But I will be more patient than anybody else. But either way, I still just wanted to highlight this because it is just one more thing that you can look at. And this was shared as of last night. It's just one more thing you can look at to see, yep, you'd expect the humans to behave like this, get hit in the feels, and then panic sell. Yeah, they are. And then eventually you run out of people who are willing to panic sell. Bottoms are formed. And then there's also this. A headline from the Daily Hodl, 600 days of bullish Bitcoin momentum incoming. But there's a catch, says on-chain analyst. And they're sharing perspective from a popular chart analyst, Ali Martinez. And I'm not going to read the article, just cut to the chase. They're covering this particular post from Ali Martinez in that article. And Ali wrote the following. And so he does think that it's pretty probable that we are going to be hitting a new all-time high. This is going to be a very long cycle, just like we've seen in the past, which I hope ends up coming to pass here. But here's what he said. If Bitcoin mirrors past bull runs, like 2015 through 2018 and 2018 through 2022, from their respective market bottoms, projections suggest the next market peak could land around October 2025. This implies Bitcoin still has 600 days of bullish momentum ahead. And so, if that ends up coming to pass, I'll take it. That'd be quite a bit out. That's further out than most people are expecting. I mean, again, happy to see it. But most analysts that I'm following at this point, if they're the type that do think that we're going to be seeing a new all-time high, they think it's going to be in the calendar year of 2024. So we're pretty much here. And that, of course, lines up, especially if you're talking about later in the year, then it actually will line up back with the 4-year cycle. Then there was this post, though, Alessio Rastani. Okay, and so I think there are only 2 analysts that I follow who don't think it's probable that Bitcoin's going to hit a new all-time high, though both of them do acknowledge it's possible, and that would be Alessio Rastani and the blockchain backer. And I think they're both absolutely fantastic, which is why I'm always worried that they could be correct, because they are very good. Alessio Rastani yesterday posted this video on YouTube, and you're right here, the most dangerous time for stock markets is coming in 2024. Here's why. And so part of what he was talking about is the Fed pivot. So historically, and I'm sure many of you are already aware of this, of course, we've been talking about it a fair bit on the channel here, and broadly within the XRP community, certainly. But it is the case that by the time the Fed pivots, and you're talking about rate cuts, typically it's because something's already gone off the rails. So it's reactionary, and then shortly after that, you can see that stock markets just kind of tank. And so he talked about that, and there's 6 examples that he highlighted in the video here. But he did note, right now, there's no sign in the charts from what he can see that we're hitting a top when it comes to equity. So when you look at the stock market, he says there is no sign. But even so, just because he's not seeing that in terms of lower time frame action on the charts, he still does think that we're going to be hitting, in all probability, this last gasp at some point in this calendar year. And he also does think that there will be rate cuts, whether it's in summer this year, maybe June or July, or maybe as late as December. But he thinks they're coming. So if that does come, historically, you know what that indicates, and that would be alarming. But it could come. It just kind of makes me wonder, is there going to be enough time for the market to move to the upside prior to such an occurrence, if that is what happens, if the Fed responds in such a way? And so these are some of the most primary things that we're looking at here. And again, he does say now that's not the end-all be-all. It's one metric, it's one thing you can look at. But if it happens, if the Fed's cutting rates, we're just going to watch and see what the charts tell us. But he does acknowledge there is a possibility that we could see a move to the upside despite all of this. And then there's also this from the Daily Hodl. Fidelity analyst says Bitcoin network remains on track, updates outlook on stock market. I'm just going to cover the portion where they're talking about what's happening in the stock market because, again, I know we're here for for the crypto. We're much more interested in crypto and specifically XRP. Totally on board with that. But it is the case that the market moves in tandem. Risk on assets, crypto and equities, so certainly including XRP, they do move in tandem. It just is the case. Piece reads as follows. Fidelity's director of global macro is updating his outlook on the equities markets and says that Bitcoin's network currently remains on track. Jurian Timmer says on the social media platform X that the growth of Bitcoin is primarily driven by its scarcity and central bank monetary policy. And I want to skip past that a little bit and just kind of get to some of the stuff that he had to say specifically about the stock market, because this is what I'm super curious about. And I've been watching what the blockchain backer has to say, just like I know many of you listening are checking out what he has to say. And he's at this point, he said we're at this point, where we should be very nervous. Because when you look at the Fibonacci levels that the blockchain backer has been talking about, we should apparently be a little queasy at this point, because we're about at the top. You're talking about the move being completed here. So, if somehow this isn't the top, even the blockchain backer was saying, well, okay, then I'd have to start, maybe reviewing the thesis that he has in place effectively. I'm kind of paraphrasing here, but he's just kind of noting if this isn't actually a top and the market shows that it can plow through these particular levels, if equities can, well, maybe it is time to revisit whether or not Bitcoin could hit a new all-time high, because if you're talking about that type of move historically, we should expect that then. So, but still, he is in the camp of that's not what's most probable. Bitcoin's probably not going to hit a new all-time high here. But I wanted to highlight what Jurian Timmer here has to say with Fidelity because he's talking about, excuse me, part of what he's talking about, you'll see, is what's happening with smaller cap stocks and how they're actually lagging behind what's happening. If you're looking at what's happening, obviously the S&P 500, I think this is like the 5th day in a row that the S&P 500 has hit a new all-time high, in case you hadn't heard. So that's something, but small cap coins, not coins, I'm used to saying coins. I'm always thinking crypto. But small cap stocks, not so much. And so, it just kind of makes me think, if it's the case that the smaller cap stocks are lagging behind, which there is historic precedent for, might it be the case that we're going to see a really incredible 2024? And so anyway, here's what he had to say, though. Piece reads as follows. Looking at the stock market, the Fidelity analyst says that small cap stocks are lagging behind larger equities, creating uncertainty as to whether or not a true bull run is underway. Timmer says he has a hunch that, like most times in the past, small caps will ultimately catch up to their larger counterparts. And here's the quote from him. The rising tide lifts most boats. With new highs for the S&P 500 index, the question is when the rest of the market will catch up and make new all-time highs. Equal weighted index, SPW, seems close following the broad-based year-end rally. Small caps remain in a bear market. History shows that sooner or later the rest of the market does tend to follow suit. Often, small caps break out concurrently with large caps, as was the case during the 1960s and 1970s, but sometimes there are lags. In 1991, following the savings and loan crisis in 1990, it took 10 months for small caps to confirm. In late 1998, following the long-term capital management crisis, it took 14 months. In the spring of 2019, following the 20% drop in late 2018, it took 20 months. And so I'm just pausing to note here, there is historic precedent for this type of thing to unfold. And if history is going to repeat in that manner, it's just the whole thing's going to be lengthened out. And so, again, there's a lot of things to consider. Like I was saying, of course, will the Fed be cutting rates? To what degree would that have impact? And how quickly? And then the rest of his quote is as follows. With the Russell 2000 still 21% below its high, keeping it in bear market territory, it's worth asking whether it has ever happened that small caps are in a bear market while large caps are in a bull market. The answer is no, although we came close a few times. My hunch is they'll catch up eventually, just like in the past, end quote. Okay, and so that's the part that I found to be most interesting about this. And so there's the Russell 3000 and the Russell 2000. The Russell 3000 is an index that tracks the top 3,000 publicly traded stocks. And so that covers, I believe, I want to say like 96% of what you can invest in equities. So it's very broad exposure. Whereas with the S&P 500, obviously, it's just the top 500 firms. And so you're getting exposure to a lot of large caps. But then with the Russell 3000, it's certainly more broad. And then the Russell 2000, it's actually the bottom 2,000 stocks that are tracked in the Russell 3000. So these are just indexes. And of course, then there are ETFs that track that so people can invest that way too. I'm sure many of you out there listening have done this. But it's behind right now. So again, like I said, I think it's the 5th day in a row where the S&P 500 is hitting a new all-time high. And then you can look at the NASDAQ 100, which is obviously tech-heavy. And the crypto tracks it. It does track it. And then you've got the smaller caps here. They're like the Russell 2000, still in basically what he's calling here anyway, bear market territory. But there's historic precedent for it to catch up. So might we be having a fun year in 2024 as that takes time to catch up, and then crypto ultimately pops and hits a new all-time high. Well, it's certainly possible. If we want XRP to hit a new all-time high, we better be praying that this comes to pass, because as far as I'm concerned, it ain't going to happen unless the equities continue to blaze to the upside, which would then allow opportunity for Bitcoin to keep moving to the upside, and then XRP ultimately. But if it doesn't happen like that, I'm not exactly optimistic for the short term. Now, I'm still just going to hold because I'm a stubborn son of a bitch, but that would kind of suck for the short term. I'm not a financial advisor. You should not buy or sell anything because if anything I say are right, that would be a very, very, very bad idea. Until next time, to the moon, Lambo.